step 4. Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. We are back and better than ever. Last week was a whirlwind. We had back-to-back conferences where we went to SQL Bits, and then we went to the inaugural Microsoft Fabric Community Conference. What a mind-blowing event with over 4,200 attendees, and next year's dates are already announced. You can't go to the first one, but you can go to the next one. So you want to make sure and check that out, because our hope is that we're going to be there. We were back with content. Sorry, I messed up a little bit on where I was reading. This past Monday, Daniel Taylor was back with Introduction to Alerting and Scaling with Elastic Jobs and Azure SQL. Then on Wednesday, I returned with the Introduction to Microsoft Fabric Database Mirroring with Azure SQL. Then this Monday, Dan was back again with How to Monitor Your Azure SQL Databases, Introduction to Azure Database Watcher. Database Watcher is just an absolutely amazing tool, one that we are going to be having a lot of fun with, especially when it comes to monitoring. That great public preview was announced at SQL Bits. There is so much to do, so much to see. You don't want to miss a thing. This is your first time finding your way over to Tales from the Field. Give us a like and give us a subscribe. We drop content every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Monday and Wednesday, we do our MS Tech Bits. That means today is Tuesday. It is the Azure Data Community Roundtable, and we are back at a new time. After playing around with things for the last month, we've heard from you, and this is the new time slot we are going to, 10 a.m. on the East Coast. You want to interact with the show? It is so easy to do so. All you have to do is make a comment on the show's live stream, and one of my amazing co-hosts will see that. They will add it to the stream, and you will be a part of the show. We love your questions. We love to be able to help answer them. We're all deep technical Microsoft experts, so please give us your Azure data questions, and we will do our best to solve them. And of course, speaking of my amazing co-host, before I go any further, I am joined by the mountain man, Mr. Daniel Taylor, the best beard in the business, Mr. Andrés Padilla, Mr. Man in a Hat himself, Josh Luedeman, Marco Aurelio Cardoso. And if you thought the eclipse was big, after 3 weeks away, your eyes are in for a treat. It's your friend of mine, Neeraj Jhaveri. We've got a quick call to action for you. You're here for part of the Azure Data Community Roundtable. So what do we want you to do? We want you to head over to the Microsoft page where you can find your user group. Join your local user group. Participate in virtual user group meetings. This is where you're going to find potentially your next job, people to be able to network, help you figure out the problems you are facing in your current job. It's absolutely amazing. There we go. There's the best beard in the business coming back to us live, Mr. Andrés Padilla. All right. But join that Azure Data Community, because there is so much learning that you can do as part of the Azure Data Community. But after the Azure Data Community, after you join it, you're part of a user group. What do we want you to do? Well, we want you to head over to SQLSaturday.com. Make sure you get some free training. Coming up, we've got SQL Saturday Atlanta, where myself and Daniel Taylor will be there live. And then also we've got SQL Saturday Jacksonville coming up in May, on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you and also with you. And we will be there with Buck Woody doing a pre-con on artificial intelligence. And then we've got multiple sessions throughout the day at SQL Saturday. But wait, there's more, because after you go over to SQLSaturday.com, where should you head? You should head to Data Saturday, where we have amazing events coming at you from remotely around the community. Data Minds is happening on Saturday the 24th, on April 27th. I'm sorry, Saturday, April the 27th for 2024. Then we have Stockholm, Croatia. Data Saturday, Rhineland. So many wonderful events. Make sure you check out datasaturday.com. And just a few more things. We want to make sure that you're learning. So if you're learning Microsoft Fabricators, well, Fabricators, welcome. We have our Microsoft Fabric Learning Group, and there are over 2,000 active members, nearing 3,000, and we would love for you to be a part of it. We're a part of it. The product group is a part of it. And a quick note about our schedule. We're here at a new time and a new place, but one thing we want to make sure you know is the upcoming schedule that we have. So coming up, well, we've got the roundtable today, but then we also have a roundtable coming up next week on the 16th. But notice on the 23rd, we've got our next product group live stream. That's going to be Microsoft Fabric, where we recap everything from Microsoft FabricCon, but we're also going to have some product group members in place to be able to work with you and talk with you about the amazing announcements that they've got. And your questions are very welcome. And then we're going to finish up the month, April the 30th, with another roundtable, and we hope to see you there. Whew. I was going to say that's a lot to get out. Andreas, talk to me, Goose. What's going on? How was your weekend, buddy?
I got the biggest bouncy castle from Costco the other day, and it takes up my whole backyard. And my 4-year-old, I jumped on top of it, and she flew up 10 feet in the air. It was awesome.
I was going to say, imagine what can happen when I come down there. You had me at bouncy capsule, man. I'm in. That's my weekend plans. I'm going down to Andreas's. Josh, you in? We need to make this happen. This needs to be a reality. I need some bouncy.
I'm afraid of getting arrested for child abuse if I do what Andres did with his kid. I like she'll launch into orbit.
I think better yet, how about we see how high you and Josh can bounce me? Because then it's not child abuse.
Yeah, no. Then it's just assault with a deadly weapon. Continue.
Exactly. Well, then it's just funny.
Yeah,
it's just Barstool.
We've talked about. Yeah. We've talked about needing a place to test our new live stream theory. I mean, bouncy house flinging people around seems kind of like a good place to me.
Welcome to this episode of Tales from the Bounce House.
I don't know if the audio is going to be great, but it's worth a try. It'll
probably sound like just exactly what I just did. Welcome to Tales from the Bounce House. It'll be the bounce that good.
Maybe that good, but again, depending on how high you guys get me to fly, if you get me out of that bouncy castle, it's going to hurt me, but it's going to be one heck of a short.
Be a lot of wind noise.
I was going to say, I could see Neeraj going, okay, I'm live. Go for it.
Just hear the wind by the microphone as Brad's flying. I'm getting a good view.
I can see a lake from up here. Well, it's speaking of, it's time for us to be able to have a little fun, but let's get started with the data community. We've got a lot of links that we put together. We've been away from 3 weeks. And so there's a lot of wonderful announcements for us to get to. We're going to cover a lot of different things. First up, well, it's a man who every time I see him, it just brightens my day. So of course, you know who I'm talking about. The one, the only, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri, who is up first with Microsoft Fabric Lifecycle Management, getting started with Git integration and deployment pipelines. Neeraj, walk me through this.
So as people are waiting for the eclipse to happen, this is the same thing for Fabric. A lot of people were waiting for the Git integration and the deployment pipelines to come in. So at this point of time, during the FabCon, they announced the Git integration with the pipelines. It does currently work with Git in Azure repos only, but eventually it would be supporting a lot of other stuffs. But right now it's showing you step by step how to create a Git integration and then how to integrate your pipelines along with the Git integration part of it. So definitely something to try out. I'm sure Brad would jump and create a video right away. He has a great series of the Git integration, so this would be another one for Fabric.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, this is on my list. This is pretty high up on my list. But actually, the video I'm working on for this week is going to be the data pipelines, import from on-prem using data pipelines. I'm very, very excited for that. So I'm working through that right now. So that's the goal. Everything goes right tomorrow. That's the video you're going to see. It's not done yet, though. So speaking of things that are not done yet, well, you could say that about public preview, but you could also say on public preview, we're getting a lot closer to things being exactly where they need to be. And I've got Mr. Joseph Sack, my good buddy and a good friend of many of us, who is a wonderful PM who returned to Microsoft and has been championing CoPilot in Azure. And we have announced recently that we've extended these capabilities to Azure SQL Database in private preview. Specifically, we have introduced the natural language and the Azure CoPilot integration. Aaron Stellato and Buck Woody did an amazing demo of this on the SQL Bits keynote. If you have not seen that, SQL Bits put it out live. Yeah, I know, Josh. It's save your SQL butts for something else, right?
I'm sorry,
we're talking.
I'm over 40 with a 12-year-old humor. Sorry, continue.
That's okay. It's been a little while since I spoke. I'm a little more tongue-tied than I thought I would be, but this was absolutely amazing because one of the things that Erin did in the demo was she showed how in the Copilot integration within the Azure portal, she could ask questions about her database. She could get answers directly from the query store. She could identify poorly performing queries and get information about being able to look at the plans that are in place, information, statistics, tabular data that she could actually make decisions based off of. And this was all returned to her from the Copilot. And so Joe walks you through how some of this works, how to be able to see the natural language integration, how to be able to see what happens if you say my database is slow. You can see that it analyzes your database and it actually says, here's some things that you should investigate. And it specifically pointed out a query to him. How can I tune high CPU query? Well, we've got some answers for that as well. So these capabilities are absolutely amazing. And if you want to sign up for this, this is the big link right here. Request access to Copilot and Azure SQL Database. That's the form you need to fill out. But if you do, you can get into this public preview so you can test this functionality within the Azure portal to get deep insights directly from your databases. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Oh, and I see we got some comments. Henry Rogers, thank you so much. Look forward to this from 3 weeks away. We are glad you are here with us. And it is our good friend Bradley Schatt from the Fabric Cat product group. Great to see you too, Brad. We can't wait to see you up in Atlanta and Jacksonville. Those are the 2 SQL Saturdays I'm going to be at, Dan's going to be at, and then also Bradley Schatt is going to be at both of those SQL Saturdays. But we're not alone. In Jacksonville, Josh Luedeman's going to be there, Andrés Padilla is going to be there, Neeraj Jhaveri is going to be there, and we are going to have a great time interacting with everybody, answering questions, and doing some Tales from the Field items. Speaking of Tales from the Field items, well, I want to head over next to someone from the community. It was so great to see them last year at Live 360. It was amazing to see them at FabricCon. And even better yet is the man who's bringing him to us. And of course, you know I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Daniel Taylor, the mountain man himself. Data Bard, what is generative AI? Dan, what have we got going on here?
So Jared, who's become a good friend of ours, friend of the show, go out there, and we always say for our channel, like and subscribe. Go hit Jared up. Jared's a good guy. He speaks from an authentic voice. And here in this video, he introduces us at a high level, a starter level of what generative AI is and how we can use generative AI. He gives us an introduction to it. He has an interesting character that I find very interesting that you'll find in the video. He goes through what generative AI is versus traditional applications. Also talks about one of our favorite foods, teaching AI how to make pizza. And it makes some interesting pizzas in there. None have pineapple, but some have Duran Duran records on them. And then Jared goes through about trained generative AI. And then, most excitingly, he gives his thoughts on the future of generative AI. Go out there. It's a fun video. It's one of those where you're learning a topic, and you don't have to be serious about everything to learn a topic. And that's how Data Bard is making generative AI exciting for us. Oh, hey,
I absolutely love it. Hey, Jared, it's great to see you. I was going to say, it was so wonderful to see you at FabricCon. It was so great to see you at Live 360. Really, really enjoyed this video. It is fantastic work, my friend. And we are looking forward to seeing what else you produce. So thank you so much. And Bradley Schatt says, oh, hold on a second. Josh had comment on there. He said, AI, I can trust. Josh said, no pizza with pineapples. I have renewed hope from AI. Not me. Not me. I'm completely skeptical if it can't come up with pineapple and pepperoni on a New York slice.
The fact that you don't agree with AI just shows that eventually AI will replace some human beings and their usefulness to society. Continue with the show.
So Bob Ward did the best talk at FabCon during the Power Hour. Him and Anna Hoffman. Bob, it was so hilarious. I hope Bob does it somewhere where it gets to be presented live. It was a joke session, but he called Gen AI genuine AI. I don't think Bob is lying to us. I think Bob believes it's actually genuine AI. And we do need genuine AI in our lives. Speaking of something I need in my life, I need more of this man talking about whatever he wants to talk about because he is brilliant. You know what I'm talking about, the best beard in the business, Mr. Andrés Padilla. LLM Ops, why, what, and how with Azure Machine Learning Prompt.
Let's
Flow.
talk about whatever I want to talk about because this is my 30 seconds. Right, Brad? I love it.
Absolutely.
Anyways, you guys, this is a great article by Lander Standard. I love this because I've been getting a lot more questions on an LLM Ops, and customers are like, man, I got to deal with vector databases. I got to deal with the prompts. I got to deal with evaluations. I got to deal with all this gamut of factors when building your, smart solution with LLMs. I love the way Lander breaks it down for customers of what you really have at the high level. You have your initialization step, you have your experimentation step, your refinement step, and then you can get that into production. But he also introduces us to the LLM Ops prompt flow template. If you guys haven't played with this, this is a must-have template. It shows you how to operationalize your whole LLM Ops into production, how to get those inner development cycles, your outer circles, your inner circles working. It is a killer template. Thank you for breaking it down and making it that much easier to make things go to production later.
Wonderful stuff. Yes. Thank you so much for that article. That is great. And I love it whenever you take something that's ML, that's ops, you break it down easy so anybody can understand it. Jared, we are constantly inspired by you, my friend. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. We really, really enjoy you being a part of the show, and also thank you for the great work. We can't wait to feature more of your stuff. So keep going out there and making it. We appreciate you massively. Speaking of someone who I appreciate, well, you know who I'm talking about. Of course, the person that I appreciate the most is one of our new faces, Mr. Marco Cordellione, bringing us Azure AI announced prompt shields for jailbreak and indirect prompt injection attacks. You had me all the way through there. This was always really interesting. Break it down for me. What do we got here?
Yeah, so really exciting stuff. This new feature, Prompt Shields, that's a new feature in Azure AI Content Safety. I found it important for a couple of different reasons. Number one, right now, Gen AI applications are under fire from many different threat vectors. We're just finding out what it's all about, how folks are exploiting these models. So with that, we need the kind of tool set to protect these applications. And typically what we do is sort of a layered approach. So we already have a lot of content filtering within Azure OpenAI and other Gen AI models. And this is just another tool that goes on top of that to help protect your AI applications. So a couple things. This article starts by covering what are these different attack vectors. So it talks about indirect attacks, which are mostly people fabricating documents that look like documents when you first glance at them, but they actually contain prompt injections within them. And there's a very interesting example here of an email. And it also talks about more direct attacks, which we call jailbreaking, where the user themselves is trying to override the instructions or otherwise misuse the model and get around its content filters. So this new feature, Prompt Shields, helps you filter on the way in so that we get an idea of whether the user is trying to attack the system or whether the documents that are fed into your Gen AI application have been tampered with somehow. Really interesting stuff. It has links to the documentation. It talks about the roadmap a little bit. So we hope to see these features built into Azure OpenAI service soon. Really interesting stuff. It's more and more important as we see these applications go into production. And make sure to check out the additional resources. There's a lot of cool science in there too.
Very nice.
That's
very nice.
Actually really cool because there's a lot of bad actors out there. And look, AI scares the heck out of me. We've all seen the movies, right? We all know about things that have happened in the past in our lives, right? World wars and stuff like that. And preventing people from using AI for bad things is awesome. I love that. That's a great article. Definitely on my list to read this week. Great stuff.
Well, and I love it because it's important to understand the vernacular whenever we're working in a new service, right? To be able to establish that common vocabulary so we can communicate. And when I think about great communication, I can't help but think of this man who not only is he an amazing communicator, but he is one of the most sharply dressed people I know. And I absolutely love what he's wearing today. And of course, I'm talking about my good friend, the one and only man in a hat himself, Mr. Josh Luedeman, Langchain integration with Azure database for Postgres, part one. That title in itself was a roller coaster ride for me, Josh. I was like, Langchain, I'm in. Azure database. Ooh, with Postgres. Wow. I mean, so the hits just kept on coming. Tell me what we got here.
See, now you're shameless kissing back up after all those times of giving great, wonderful compliments to everybody else are graciously accepted. Anyways, this article is a great article. Like you said, Brad, it's bringing together a lot of the good stuff. It's LangChain database for Postgres, and it's actually part of a 3-part blog. And, you know, normally I wait to bring these multi-part blogs to the group after, you know, they're at least past midway. This is the first part, and the other 2 haven't been written yet that I've been able to find. So it's going to be a great series. This one's going to focus on using LangChain and basically breaking down documents, and then generating the embeddings for each chunk with OpenAI, and then ultimately storing all of that in Postgres using pgvector, which is the vector database extension for Postgres. And then doing a little bit of similarity search and things like that. The next one's going to get into adding a chat interface. And then the part 3 is using LangChain to add chat history to the Postgres database. So it's really going to be an interesting solution. But in here, the reason I wanted to bring it up is he's featuring everything, you know, Josh, wonderful name, compliments to his mother. I mean, just mwah. Anyways, it goes into he's going into.
I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Did you just do a Mark Wahlberg? Say hi to your mom for me.
Yeah. I did. No. So this is, but he even goes into everything like, you know, the options for selecting in VS Code, the modules for importing in Postgres, and great detail in the screenshots and code selections throughout the whole solution, explaining everything as he's going through it, complete with a conclusion. And at the end of the article, links to the GitHub repo in Azure samples, where he's sharing the code, and even common issues that he has added and additional ones that he'll add, I would imagine, as people go through this and kick the tires. So great article, great solution. I'll be watching this and the samples repo for more info. And I will try and bring back additional ones as they drop.
I was going to say that's very interesting. That sounds like something that would be really, really fun to play around with too. As this series gets fleshed out, I want to go build that. Dan may beat me to it, but that sounds like some fun stuff to do. Dan also said Josh kind of reminds me of Magnum PI today. You know, I could see it if we make it just the mustache. I think Josh can pull off a mustache.
I'm just missing the Tigers hat. I went with this hat instead of the Detroit Tigers. Other than that, totally Magnum PI.
Well, and Marco said that 10 out of 10, he would trust Josh to lead an expedition in that outfit. And then Bradley Shat, Bradley Shat rolled his eyes because I'm with him. I believe that Josh would get eaten by a lion 5 minutes into the expedition of him getting out of the Jeep. No,
I'm in the Jeep.
I think you're in the lion is what I was saying. But you know what's not in a lion? An amazing man named Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri, who's bringing us this article, Analyze Dataverse Tables from Microsoft Fabric. Neeraj, what do we got going on here?
So last week was Christmas, right? I mean, FabCon announced so many things for Fabric, and one of the thing was Dataverse, right? I mean, now we have one more shortcut to Dataverse, and we can bring data from Dataverse into Microsoft Fabric just using the shortcut. Travis goes about what the prerequisites should be. One definitely is system administrator privileges for Dataverse environment, just to make sure that that is a must to have it. And then all you need to do is, right there, prerequisites. And then all you need to do is create a Dataverse shortcut into Fabric, and boom, all your data can we start moving into the Fabric environment, and you can create a report out of the Dataverse data that you have. So Trevor goes about going how to create all this stuff. and then how to create a report out of it. So definitely a nice article to go on.
Wow, this is absolutely amazing. I've actually got a customer that we've been doing a lot of work with Dataverse and with Fabric. I'm going to be sending this over to them because that's going to be absolutely that would be fantastic. The show account, I think this may have been Neeraj doing this. Josh does want to find a kangaroo. I can confirm that. Josh did want to say that he wanted to try his hand only one time, and it wasn't that he wants to fight a kangaroo. He wanted the experience. I'm trying to justify this, Josh.
Yeah,
go
but
ahead.
I don't. But I'm also I know the greatness that is Neeraj, and I think this was a Dan Taylor through and through.
It's not me. It's not me.
I knew it. It's a Dan Taylor
Yeah.
through and through.
There we go.
It.
I was gonna say, maybe
look at him hiding. Look at him hiding like George Clooney behind the hedges over there.
I was gonna say so this is actually gonna be one of the first drops that we have as a podcast. I'm gonna take the audio for this, move it over to our podcast tab for anybody who wants to hear this on the go. And for anybody who was not visually watching this, you may have missed this, but Dan kind of like ducked down and peeked up through the camera. That was a sign of guilt if ever I've seen one. Marco says we should put you and the kangaroo in the bouncy house. I think that's a heck of an idea. If Andres' screen hadn't gone dark on us, I'd be curious to see if he would do that. Brad Schatt says that he's willing to pay for the bounce house for that event. I'm saying road show to Australia. That's what we need. Josh versus the kangaroo.
Since when did Tales from the Field turn into Jackass from the Field? I mean, really, this story, this whole piece goes through back to the MTV show Jackass.
Look, that's not what we're doing, Josh. We like to help empower and enable people, and we are here to enable you to fight a kangaroo. Speaking of things that we're enabling people for, I'm talking about the public preview, announcing public preview for mirroring and Microsoft Fabric to enable people to be able to mirror their Azure SQL databases. This is by Charles Webb. I got to meet Charles out at FabricCon. It was so wonderful to meet him. We've had a lot of wonderful people on the show, on our live streams in January and February. I presented a pre-con also at FabricCon and SQL Bits with Mark Price-Mayer. Who has done so much for mirroring. He demoed that on our live stream against Snowflake. And we've got a video up that's doing quite well right now. That is our video on enabling this for Azure SQL database mirroring. So Charles announces this, and he talks about how easy it is to be able to mirror your data into Fabric. And this is a key for me, because if you think about it, part of our architecture as data people has always been, let's take our OLTP workload. Let's take that workload, and then we have to forklift that into our analytics environment. Then we need to set up data integration pipelines. We might even need to make some table schema changes, or enable something like change data capture, or enable something like table versioning underneath the covers to be able to make this work. With this at a flip of a button, whether we want to do it in Azure SQL, Cosmos Database, or Snowflake, we can turn on replication that real-time replicates our changes in our OLTP environments to Microsoft Fabric. Frictionless real-time data replication. And this, Charles is showing us doing this from a Snowflake database. So anybody who has Snowflake that would like to get their data into a Fabric environment so we can consume Power BI, that data with Power BI reports, not only can we do that, but as you're uploading and ETLing that data live, it's going to land in a mirrored database that we can use. And you can see that we can query this doing code or no code. I showed in our video how I could do shortcuts to a KQL database, consume that data in KQL for direct query on a Power BI report to track the International Space Station. But that could be anything. That could be retail sales. That could be fleet management. That could be delivery of packages. All those different things you can think about you might have going into an OLTP system that we fight against, offloading, locking, and blocking by being able to take that, put that straight into our analytics environment and report off of that data. It is real-time upgraded, but that's your medallion architecture. Charles shows how you can do the data science experience, utilizing notebooks to shortcut that data. So many wonderful things you can do with this. This is a must-read article. And one thing I want to make sure and note, the whole time we've been broadcasting, every single one of these links is in the description of the video. So make sure that you go down to the description of the video and you click through this and you get to the amazing content that we have in place and the creators. Go and follow them. If they're on Twitter, We put their Twitter accounts in. We've got their information, their names, so that way you can find them on LinkedIn and follow them. Wonderful, wonderful job that these creators have done being able to put all this together. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say on the Twitters. Got to add
on the Twitters. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, Elon already got rid of Twitter. It doesn't exist anymore. So if we're going to just make up names now, let's add our own flair. It's the Twitters, not just
no. I refuse.
So many Twitters out there.
I refuse to call it X if I do Elon's one, and I'm not giving up on it. It's still Twitter in my heart and mind.
I did not say the deadly letter. I said Twitters.
But speaking of number one in hearts in my mind, of course, you know who I'm talking about. The one and only Mr. Daniel Taylor. We've got using temporary tables within serverless SQL pools. Dan, what we got going on here?
So I was running into an issue with a client a couple weeks ago, and they're using the serverless pools, and they were having some issues with meeting their SLAs, querying from the data from ADLS. So wanted to give this a try, right? Wanted to go, they had some subqueries in there, and I was like, well, would temp tables work with that? Well, Andy Cutler here goes through what we can use temp tables for with Azure SQL Serverless, or Synapse Azure SQL Serverless, shall I say, and goes through supported features and scenarios, goes through some examples of creating these temp tables, then shows us how we can insert data into these temp tables, limitations around that, and then how we could possibly join these temp tables together, and then some size limitations around that, because there are some definite limitations you need to keep in mind. Read the article, find out what those limitations are if you don't know those today, and then a looping process scenario so that you could possibly use one of these temp tables so that you don't need to keep going back to disk or ADLS, shall I say, for those subqueries. Great article here, really interesting read. Helped me solve a problem that I was looking at and get us a little bit over a hump.
Fantastic stuff. I love it. I love it. It's so good. Speaking of, I was so impressed when I saw this next blog. Oh, I've got a little bit of an echo. Hold on. I think that's Andreas, but that's okay because he's coming up next. So up next, I have Mr. Andrés Padilla with integrating vector databases.
Okay, great article by Greg Duda about vector databases and how they're used in LLMs. I know we've talked about this a couple times, in our roundtables, but what I really like about this is that he gives us a brief overview of vector databases, the importance of creating, those word vectors. He gives us a little insight of what's happening behind the scenes. This is good for you to know because this could be a fine-tuning process in your RAG pattern that you're like, wow, where can I make, get a little bit more precision? Where can I get a little bit more performance? It could be on the vector DB side. So he takes us through a number of use cases where it's applied. And then at the very bottom, he introduces us to how to create a RAG pattern with Llama 2 and Falcon. So I love that he's using open source, models in here. As opposed, it's good to see a different perspective from time to time of how to, use RAG with open source. And what I really value most about this is not only gives you insight of what's going on behind the scenes when you're creating those word vectors, but then the optimizations that you can apply for your indexing. So love it. Thank you, Greg, for this great post.
Excellent. Wonderful stuff, Andres. We appreciate you. I think we're having a little bit of technical issues there. You may be going through a tunnel. I'm not entirely certain. We lost your video, but there was a little bit of echo there as well. We appreciate you hanging on with us. And speaking of someone that I appreciate, of course, I appreciate this next man. I always appreciate him. It is Mr. Marco Aurelio Cardoso, Microsoft Azure AI applications, aiding accessibility, 6 ways generative AI helps improve accessibility for all within Azure. I think that was the longest title of the week. Marco, please take it away.
Sorry about that. But yeah, this article, what prompted me to look for something around this topic was a conversation I had with a customer earlier this week. I think it was yesterday. where they asked a very simple question. We were building a Gen AI system, standard chatbot with RAG integration, and they asked me straight up, Marco, how accessible is this stuff that we're building? And it hit me quite hard because it's so easy to lose track of that when we're working with these new technologies. We're excited about the art of the possible, but if we lose sight about the people that are actually going to use the solution, we're really missing out on a big chunk of the quality that we can deliver through these applications. So this article covers a few different topics where Gen AI in Azure is helping aid accessibility. So it talks about CoPilot, of course, the all-in-one personalization tool. It talks about things like audio and vision, which are really, really useful to help increase the productivity when we're dealing with people with disabilities. It talks about mental health, and it brings some really interesting examples towards the end of customers and other inspirations for this effort. So really interesting stuff. I'm certainly going to read more into this. It's a topic that's really interesting to me, and I'm sure a lot of you will find it interesting as well.
You know, we've got a very good friend of all of ours and of the show, Mr. Steve Hughes, and Steve has been very open about detailing his fight with ALS. And one of the things that Steve had blogged about recently, if nobody else calls it, I'm going to be calling it for a future roundtable that we've got, is the work that AI and Copilot has done with enabling him, as he does his best to continue the wonderful work that we have seen him do throughout his lifetime. And I think it's a really big and a very important thing to understand, not just, how can I get funny looking pictures, right? How can I amalgamate certain things? How can we produce chats and texts that, maybe help us write documents a little bit easier? How do we empower people who have disabilities to be able to interact and overcome those disabilities? And that is a massive thing that AI can do, to be able to help us by augmenting these processes that are non-natively intelligent processes, but we need some level of intelligence and adaptation to be at work to support people. I love it. I absolutely love that you brought this together. Wonderful stuff. Great article. I'm looking forward to reading this offline. And of course, that brings me to the last article of the week by the wonderful and ever handsome Mr. Tom Selleck himself, our good friend Josh Luedeman, the man in the hat, provisioning premium SSD v2 storage for Microsoft SQL Server on Azure virtual machines in the Microsoft Azure portal. That may be close.
Oh, no. I did the count. On Marco had 11. I have 18 words. I win.
Wow. Yeah, longest title of the week. It goes to Luda. There we go.
Well, yeah, and it's from our great friend Dave Pless from the Azure SQL team. And so what he's talking about is actually something that, a few of us on this call have been quietly a part of the conversation on, which is V2, premium SSD V2 storage for SQL on Azure virtual machines. So what David goes through here is a great article that, I think is something that, yes, we've done, a few different times as a company of talking about storage options as far as SQL Server on virtual machines. But I also think it's just because of the evolving nature of the cloud and even storage on, in Azure, that it's something that has to be kind of gone through again and again every once in a while, just to really update the guidance. And that's exactly what he does here. Starts with just basic, guidance on SQL Server storage options, goes through the different options, including UltraDisk, compares the VM and storage deployments, which is good, gets into, VM types and things like that. Basic best practices with that, a little bit on pricing, and then resources to get into premium SSD V2 storage for SQL Server, and some links to additional articles on it. But for me, I just, it's David Pless, and it's storage on VMs. It's VMs anything. David and that entire team, with Taryn and Pam and others, just a great team. So had to drop this one out there.
Well, and what a wonderful chart that he's got in here. And this is the thing I love, right? When the work that the product group does to be able to build out, do testing. In this case, Dave did TPCC testing. He has the notation that this is utilizing HammerDB's TPCC workload derived from the TPCC benchmark, not compatible with the TPCC benchmark. And then he also lists the additional VMs that are in place, and he looks at this value to be able to show the best cost per performance that we have, the price per performance ratio. Absolutely amazing stuff. And look at that level of IOPS that he's pulling on the data pool and on the log pool, and the megabytes per second that he's pulling there.
Right?
I wouldn't expect anything else from David Pless.
No.
He is one of the nicest and smartest and funniest men that we know. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Well, hey, there's just a couple reminders I want to make sure everybody keeps in mind. Coming up very soon, we are only, I guess a little over a week and a half away from SQL Saturday Atlanta on April the 20th. You don't want to miss that date. There are wonderful pre-cons preceding that. Bob Ward has one. Jim Gray has one. I was going to say there's so many wonderful pre-cons for that. Go and check out SQL Saturday Atlanta. Check out the pre-cons on Friday, because you're going to get one. I believe Bob and Anna Hoffman are doing a presentation on Saturday. I think she's going to be a part of the pre-con as well. And I mean, if you look at this is world-class pre-cons that you typically pay hundreds, if not $1,000 for at a major conference. You can get them for a much lower price and in the wonderful, beautiful city of Atlanta. Then on Saturday, come join us. I'm going to be there. Bradley Schatz's going to be there. Daniel Taylor is going to be there. We're going to have a great time up in Atlanta. And then a little bit later, about 2 weeks away from there in Jacksonville, we're going to have our AI pre-con. Mr. Buck Woody will be joining myself, Josh Luedeman, Neeraj Jhaveri, Andrés Padilla, Daniel Taylor, and we're going to be giving you a full day of AI learning. On top of that, we've all got sessions. Bradley Schatz's going to be there as well. All of us will be in Jacksonville. This is going to be a wonderful Tales from the Field event, and we are going to have a great time up there. Don't forget, it is never too early. We have submitted our sessions, but we're talking Visual Studio SQL Live 360 coming up in November. It's the only place you want to be, down in Orlando on the Universal Studios. Josh, wait, let me cut it over to you. Where are we going to be?
It's the picturesque, lovely grounds of the Lowe's Royal Pacific Resort and Conference Center.
So slow. So no, say it faster. Say it faster. Come on, give it to me.
Okay. Beautiful Universal Studios Orlando, home of Beetlejuice, Frankenstein, and Dracula. Continue, my friend.
Absolutely. There's no other place you want to be. There's a Voodoo Donuts. You got bacon on a donut that you can have for breakfast before you go for a full day of learning. I can't think of a better thing. And also keep your eyes on Future Data Driven. The call for speakers is open right now. We are submitting papers, and we hope to be a part of that in September this fall. So many wonderful things are coming up for the community. Gentlemen, anything else that I forgot to say that you want to mention? All right.
No,
well,
we're good.
I was going to say for Josh Luedeman, Daniel Taylor, Marco Cardoso, Andrés Padilla, Neeraj Jhaveri, I'm Bradley Ball. Thank you so much for joining us on Tales from the Field. Be good to one another and take care of each other out there. Bye, everybody.